Hi everyone, thank you for being here and Happy New Year. I want to talk to you about two things today. The first one is an update on my debt collector at the door story, and the second thing is about peace. And so you may have read my article on what happened when a debt collector came to the door because I've withheld payment for my council tax. And it was really a difficult thing for me to experience, but what it did do is help me to step into fear and deal with the situation the best way that I could, and also to know that what I'd been doing was correct and what they were doing was unlawful. So since that experience, I've had two visits from debt collectors. And they present themselves as bailiffs, and there is a difference. A bailiff has greater rights than a debt collector, and bailiffs with the correct documentation can take your stuff away, whereas a debt collector can't. And they often tell you things that are not true in order to scare you into submission. So the second visit I had, they came to the door and I saw them coming down the path, so I just turned away. I actually was on the phone at the time, and I turned away and went into a different room. And when I came back, they'd gone. And they'd left me a note, which I didn't open because it wasn't addressed to me, and put it in the bin, and then just forgot about it. And although I did feel a little bit of fear, it was significantly less than the first time. Then a few weeks later, I got another visit, and I thought it was my daughter's friend at the door. So I opened the door, it was 7:15 at night, and it was pitch black outside. And then there was a man standing there in a uniform, holding up a badge of some kind, and telling me he was sorry to bother me, and telling me that he was a debt collector, presenting as a bailiff. And so I just said, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you want. And I shut the door. So he left me a note, another note in the letterbox, and he'd written my car registration and the description of my car, make and model, on the back, which I took to be a threat that they were going to attempt to take my car. So again, I felt even less fear than I had before, and just know that it's not possible for them to do that because they don't have the right documentation, and what they're actually doing is unlawful. And so it's a constant reminder that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not having this bullying behaviour. But the wonderful thing that has happened since then is someone has taken a debt collecting agency to court for bullying and harassment, and the court found in the person's favour and awarded £4,000 in fines, which is incredible and shows that what they are doing is unlawful, and it also shows what the councils are doing is unlawful, because they're not telling us the truth about where our money is going. And yes, we do need to pay for services, but we need to pay the right amount of money. We need to know where that money is going. And there's so much smoke and mirrors around taxes. There's so many taxes that we pay. And where does all of this money actually go? We don't know. And you can't find out. It is extremely difficult. And so the only way to make a change is to withhold payment, because in a wonderful, fair and equal world where we understood what was actually happening, where our money was going, we'd be able to find that out. We'd be able to ask questions and get answers, but we don't. We ask questions and we get smoke and mirrors. And we just have to accept that, or so we're told we do, but we don't have to accept it. The time has come to ask questions, and keep on asking questions until you get an answer that you can understand, that makes sense, is fair, is equitable. And that is not happening. For many, many years, we've been told lies about where our money goes, about what our government does, about what's actually going on in this world. And 2024 is really going to be the year of huge revelation. And I don't say that to scare anybody, and it will be pretty horrible at times. But what is more horrible is what has been going on under the surface for thousands of years. Things that we maybe suspect are happening, but we don't really know. Well, like any form of healing, and this planet is healing, we are finding out the things that have been going on with so-called celebrities and government and people who are supposed to be serving us but don't. They serve themselves. There's so much greed and power that influences things that shouldn't be happening. And so what we're doing now is finding out exactly what's going on. And that's going to be very shocking for people. And yet, when we see it, we can then do something about it. We can decide whether we want it or not. That is our fundamental right. And so this is going to be a very exciting year. And I continue to withhold payment of my council tax until I get an answer. And so far, and I think it's going to be 2 years in April, I still haven't had answers to my questions, which tells you a lot. And I'm still not in prison, which also tells you a lot. And when I first told a few people what I was doing, one of them actually said, "I'll come and visit you in prison." That is the level of fear and the misunderstanding that we have about what's real and what's not. And most of us know that council tax is not fair and equitable. And yet, a lot of people still continue to pay it, but there are now hundreds of thousands of people who are not, because they're becoming more and more aware of the nefarious activities that go on. So the second thing I want to talk about, because it is going to be a very challenging year for us, is peace and how we experience more peace in our lives. And there is a lot of stuff that's happening in the world, as we know. There's a terrible war, which is truly horrific. There are a huge number of people dying above what is normal. And this is not being spoken about in the media either, which is interesting in itself. Over 100,000 excess deaths. And yet it's not being discussed in the media. Now that's excess deaths. This is people dying above the normal number. So why is that happening? Why is it not being investigated? These are things that we have to be aware of. We have to look at things we don't want to look at. And then we have to look in our own lives, in our experience of life, and what is not true, what is not fair, what is not equitable. How are we living life? It's really easy to talk about the war and how terrible it is, and it is terrible. But what can we do? And if there's nothing that we can do directly, then what can we do to make sure that we live as peaceful a life as possible? The kind of peace that is our birthright. One of the ways that we can be more peaceful is to speak our truth. And I know from experience, there have been times when I haven't spoken my truth. I have to certain people and not to other people. And why is that? And I've really explored that. I've explored why I can say truthful things in one area of my life, but not in another. And it's a fear. It's a fear of losing something, of not keeping things the way they are at the cost of my own truth. And so I don't do that anymore. And if I ever catch myself doing it, then I explore why, and then I do it. And if you notice, as I'm telling you this, where you don't tell your truth? Is it to certain people? Is it certain situations? You don't speak your truth. Why that is? And the only way to find out if you don't know why is to actually do it. And to explore it, it's really important that you do it from a place of peace. Because if you speak your truth in anger, it's not going to go well. But if you really understand and know what you want, and you ask for it, and you speak your truth, then however somebody else reacts to that is up to them. But how you respond to that is also up to you. And what you discover in speaking your truth will tell you a lot about what you really want and what you don't want in your life, in your experience of life. And the more peaceful that we are, because that's who we truly are, is love and peace, the more this world will be peaceful. I'll see you soon. Much love.